On any given day, there are 2.7 million children who currently have a parent incarcerated in America. And over 10 million people have experienced a parent behind bars at some point in their lives. This is not a unique story. This is a part of the American story. From the lenses of young adults, this podcast explores the harm of poverty, mass incarceration, the beauty and resilient relationships, and the pain of fractured bones. Join our co-hosts as they enter the sanctuary with our guests in this episode of If Only You Knew.
Hello, everybody. My name is Amari McDuffie.
My name is Anaya Roche.
And today we have Miss Yasmine. Welcome to our sanctuary.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
So Miss Yasmine, can you tell us a little about yourself, please?
Absolutely. My name is Yasmine Arrington. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., once upon a time affectionately known as Chocolate City. My father has been in and out of jail and prison from the time I was 2 years old to this very day. I'm now 28 years old. My mother passed away when I was 13 on my youngest brother's birthday. When I was a freshman, I had just started my high school career. And in addition to my personal story, I'm the founder and executive director of ScholarCHIPS, Inc., which is a DC-based nonprofit that provides college scholarships, mentoring, and a support network to children who have incarcerated parents, inspiring them to complete their college education. In addition to that, I'm also a host. I have a radio show and podcast, and I also am a motivational speaker and minister.
That's a lot of hats that you wear. I'm proud to say.
Tell me about it. Look, to whom much is given, much is required. And that is the truth. I'm going to tell you that.
I am very proud to say that I'm a scholar of ScholarCHIPS, which is how I got here today. So thank you, Miss Yasmine. Can you tell us a little about what kind of motivated you to start ScholarCHIPS? Like, I understand that your dad has been in prison, but what were those key factors that kind of, shaped you into this is what I'm going to do?
Absolutely. And of course, Amari, and I mean this with all of my heart, I'm so proud of you. And I'm so glad that we crossed paths. And you all, Amari graduated from Penn State in December of 2020. So now she's a ScholarCHIPS alumni. She's a graduate of Benjamin Banneker Academic High School, my alma mater. So I've got to toot the horn there. But yeah, so you said more about my story. Where should I begin? Why did I decide to start ScholarCHIPS? When I was a junior in high school, there were a lot of things going on in high school. And that I think that's one of the pivotal moments and times in a person's life. You're really trying to figure out who you are and come into yourself as a young adult, right? Becoming a young adult. And so when I was a junior in high school, I had some peers at Banneker who were saying, Yasmine, you should really get into this program called LearnServe. You should get into LearnServe International, LSI. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I did some Googling and I learned about this. It's also a DC nonprofit called LearnServe International. And it was a year-long program. They have a curriculum that trains and equips teenagers to be social entrepreneurs and social change agents, essentially problem solvers. And so in LearnServe, I was challenged to identify a social issue in my community that I wanted to see change and improve. And then ultimately we were further challenged to come up with what they call a venture project, which is a creative solution to a social problem. So in a nutshell, I identified mass incarceration and the prison industrial complex as the social issues on a macro level, so to speak, that really made me feel some type of way. And I wanted to see some change. But those issues are very large and complex, and there are a lot of factors and a lot of different players. And so I had to narrow my focus, and I narrowed my focus to the effects of parental incarceration on children and families. And of course, this is a topic and an issue that's near and dear to my heart, because I am the child of an incarcerated parent, right? And I know what the emotional and the psychological and the financial, all of the different challenges and that come along with having an incarcerated parent. So that was kind of the beginning. And at the same time, my maternal grandmother, who was my primary caregiver, shout out to grandma. And a lot of us end up being raised by whether it's a single parent, a grandparent, aunt or uncle. And at the same time, my junior year of high school, my maternal grandmother and I were researching scholarships online that I could apply for so that I could afford a college education. I was raised in a household where education was a major value, and it was not a question that I was going to college. But the challenge and the question was, well, how was I going to pay for it, right? Because there was no generational wealth. There was no, Yasmine College Fund, unfortunately, right? So we had to hustle and find scholarships. And in that search process, my grandmother made a very interesting observation. One evening, we were sitting in the dining room. I remember it as clear as day. And she turned around to me and she said, from the desktop, she turned around and she said, Yasmine, there's so many scholarships out here. There's scholarships for military children. There's scholarships for making your prom dress out of duct tape, but I don't see any scholarships for children of incarcerated parents. Aha. That was the, as they say, aha moment. It wasn't my aha, but it was someone who was close to me, my grandmother's aha. And I, we talked about it many times, and she also came up with the name of ScholarCHIPS. And usually children of incarcerated parents in like the sector of research and practitioners, they usually refer to us as COIP or COIPs. However, CHIPS is a lot more catchy and more funky, right? So ScholarCHIPS, this is a part of our story, but we're educated, we're intelligent, we're resilient, we're passionate, right? We're community oriented, we're civically engaged, right? So that is how I came up with the idea of ScholarCHIPS. I said, well, can I start a scholarship fund and a mentoring program for youth with incarcerated parents to help them to get to and through college? And 10 years later, 11 years later, here we are. So that's my story.
Thank you for sharing, Yasmine. I am from outside of DC, so I don't have much of a background or understanding or just awareness of, your organization and what you do. So from an outsider perspective and, hearing your story, how did you go from this, high school junior with a whole bunch of ideas to a 28-year-old, young, successful woman? Like, what were those actionary steps that you took, or what were the first steps to make your dreams a reality?
Wow, that's a great question.
Thank you.
What were the steps to making my dreams reality? Honestly, I'm still quiet as kept. I'm still trying to figure that out. I think we're all just trying to figure it out, right? But for me, just looking back on especially these last few years from the time I was about 12, well, my whole life really, but especially from the time I was 13 till now. One is, I think what really made a major difference in my life were my teachers, my professors, who saw something in me oftentimes when I didn't see it in myself. And they saw my thirst for knowledge and education and creativity. And there were a few that really invested in me and helped me to bring those things out even more. They allowed me to ask questions in class. Without me having to feel like I'm a nerd, or I'm as they used to call, goody two shoes, or that I was asking too many questions. Like, they never made me feel bad about being curious. And I've always been a curious person. I'm always asking questions. I'm always doing research. I'm always Googling something or searching something on my phone or my laptop, right? Like that's just been my life, which I know you can relate to because you're Gen Z, right? You literally were born with a phone and an iPad in your hands. So I would say it was the teachers, my teachers, counselors in school, and having a support. I can't state enough how significant and how important it is for a child, a young person, anyone, but especially a child and a young person, or an adolescent and teenager, right? To have a support system. And so, for example, my grandmother, my church family, my teachers, my Learn Serve cohort leader, my Girl Scout troop leader, my Abramson Foundation mentor, my College Success Foundation mentor, even Miss Diane Booker at the US Dream Academy, right? Like it was a community of people that just, you know, dropped little nuggets of wisdom into me. And one thing about me is I listen, and I really value the wisdom and from my elders. I really do. And I think sometimes young people, especially as a teenager, we go through this phase where we don't want to listen to anybody. You know, we think we're grown and it's like, whatever. But honestly, they've been there and done that. They were our age once before. And not to say, you know, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And as the old adage goes, you know, chew the meat and spit out the bones. Listen, you know, have conversations. When I was younger, I would just talk to older folks. I would just talk to people, and you'd be surprised how much you learn from just listening to people's stories, from listening to people's experiences, from asking questions and having that support network. So I think that has helped me tremendously. And even to this day, I still ask questions. I still take classes. I still, you know, try to find certification opportunities. Like I just took a class through Georgetown University. It was only for a semester about nonprofit management leadership, right? And I was still learning. So I think just staying in and another thing is staying in a posture of learning and that childlike curiosity. You'd be surprised, you know, how far you can go just having that kind of mentality.
Mhm. So Yasmine, you mentioned about conversations, how you always had conversations growing up. And I know for me personally, when my dad first came home, that was your first thing you told me, you know, have conversations with your father, relearn each other. So what's some advice, or how did that look for you when, you know, you and your dad's relationship of him being home from incarceration? How did those conversations go?
Amara, that's a great question. And I'm going to be completely transparent here because I have nothing to hide. You know, my relationship with my father is complicated. It's very complicated. And I love him dearly. I love him dearly. I have forgiven him multiple times in my heart, in my mind, verbally. Um, there's a lot of, I think, and I'll get to your question, but I'll just say, I have to preface this a little bit. Some people who make a mistake or who make a decision that ultimately leads them to being incarcerated, you know, aside from the fact that as they say, correctional system or correction system in America, it is not rehabilitative. It is punitive. It's based on punishment. And a lot of times it's dehumanizing. But aside from that point, there are some people that go into prison and they say to them, they learn and they say to themselves, I'm never coming back here again. Whatever it takes, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to change my life. But there are some people there are so many people who are incarcerated, you guys, that need mental health support, They need counseling. They need therapy. They may need other measures to help them, because they've been through a lot of trauma as a child. You know, maybe they were abandoned, and my father was actually conceived out of rape. That is the story that my family tells me, and I believe it. And so my father never knew his dad. And he always had so much, you know, it was a tumultuous relationship. He was the oldest child of 4 children. And he almost like never forgave his mother for that. And it wasn't her fault. And that's another issue in society is, you know, when people blame women for getting raped. When does it stop? Right? And so, you know, that in and of itself is difficult for me. And I don't understand why, you know, when a man has issues with his parents, there's a lot there, right? And then the other things that happen in his life. And so because of all of the trauma and maybe possibly abuse from family members or whoever, things that he went through, he has not been able to face them or resolve them or come to peace with himself. So he's wrestling with things, and he brings that to all of his relationships, including me. Mm-hmm. And I value my mental health. I although I value my family relationships, sometimes I have to love from a distance, because I can't be a crutch. I will not be an enabler for a criminal mindset. I want him to heal. And so those initial conversations were strange. He didn't know what to say to me. He was nervous he was smoking all the time because he was nervous. And like when he first got out of prison, when I was in college, like I was a couple of years I had, you know, maybe I was a sophomore, I think, at this point in college. And he came out, he went to Wilson, North Carolina, his hometown. And I was at Elon. I was only about 2 hours away. I went to visit him, and I saw him. I hadn't seen him since I was 2. And we just kind of looked at each other. We are literally twins. The only difference is he's a little taller than me and I have hair. He's bald now, right? I was staring at my twin. And when we got home to his mother's house, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, I thought that eventually he would ask me all of these questions about all of the things that he had missed in my life. And there were none. And I was like, are you serious, dude? Like, are you serious? You know, you've missed so many years of my life and you have no questions. So it was weird, Amari. I'm not even going to lie to you. But over time, we'll have conversations, but his mind is stuck in a time zone, and his heart and mind, like he's stuck in a time zone. And until he wants to make a change, until he seeks therapy, until he seeks healing, you know, until he faces his past and makes peace with it and realizes that he's a grown man now, and he has to make every decision he makes. It's on him now. Yeah. It's not my fault. It's not his mother's fault. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, I'll stop there. I definitely went down a rabbit hole because you opened Pandora's box, girl, when you asked that question. It's complicated and it's messy. And the reality is, you know, we love our parents. Now, some of us can have very strong and healthy relationships with our incarcerated parents and them as returning citizens. Unfortunately, that's not my story. But I pray, I really do, that one day before it's too late, you know, we will be able to really have a healthy, strong, unbreakable, unshakable, you know, father and daughter relationship. So.
Thanks, Yasmine.
Thank you
that was
so
a lot.
much.
You touched on
Yeah.
so many good points there. I feel like we've been hearing like a reoccurring theme in our episodes of, you know, inmates need mental health services. They need, you know, it's not a rehab position. It's more so just go here, do your time, and then come home, and then you may go back again. And then I also heard you talk a lot about education a lot. What are some ways that you think we can, you know, teach our youth ways to try to, you know, I don't want to say, definitely prevent prison, But if they already were, in prison once and been released, because a lot of our youth in DC what are some ways we can teach them to stay home and, be healthy citizens?
Yeah.
That's a great questions, you guys. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, let me see if I can be succinct. So you're saying particularly for youth who have been incarcerated, or both, and like both youth who have been incarcerated before and those who haven't, just young people in the community.
Yeah, just kind of both in general.
Yeah. Well, one, okay. The thing, I think one of the most precious things in the United States of America, there are multiple systems that we have to navigate, right? And then add on top of that being a person of color, and then add on top of that being a black, a black or brown woman or black or brown man, right? That's a lot right there. But that aside, one of the things that we're missing that we used to have is the mentality of the adage that it takes a village to raise a child. And a lot of our young people do not have their parents. They don't. Their parents have to work 2 and 3 jobs, or they're out there, they're strung out. It's so many things. And young people a lot of times are raising themselves, and they're raising it's not all. I'm speaking specifically about, kind of our community, young people who've been incarcerated. Like there were things in their life that happened that led them to make the decisions they made to become incarcerated. That doesn't just we don't, when we're young and we're born, we don't have criminal minds. We don't have desires to hate people or to kill or to steal when we're children. You know what I mean? It's things that happen that you see. Oftentimes it's because of poverty. So really, young people need mentorship. And that does not necessarily take the place of where a parent, where a mother, where a father, a grandparent, and an aunt, uncle, all of that should be. But we don't have that anymore. We really don't. And when I was growing up, and the generation before me, the generation before me, our gathering place, and I'm speaking more so for the Black community, I can't speak necessarily for others, was the church. We would congregate at the church, not just on Sundays. You was going there Saturday, you was going there for vacation Bible school, you were always in church, and you were surrounded by different generations who were pouring wisdom into you. You were reading the word, right? This is my little minister coming out. I know it's not a religious program. I'm just saying, this is from my perspective. And we really don't have any of that. We really have lost it. And so like young people, their teachers are YouTube. Like their teachers are YouTube and Hard Knocks. And when you are young and your brain is still developing, and you don't have, parents who are supportive, who are training you and teaching you, who are teaching you about things about like your period, about sex, about like sexual health, birth control, about financial management. A lot of those things you get from in the home, and when you don't get them, you go out into this crazy world, and people, you're influenced. So what happens? So anyway, I say all that to say we've got to talk to each other, and for us, that's why community is so big for me. That's why ScholarCHIPS is so big for me, because Amari, when you and Tiana get to connect, when you and Xavier get to connect, it becomes a community. And so there's someone else, that there's someone else out there who's not even far from you, who knows your experience, like who has been through what you've been through, who are going to a college, and a total culture shock. It's easier to get through life and get through things when you have a support system in a community versus trying to navigate it all on your own.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, we just want to, thank you for your time. Thank you for your advice, and thank you for sharing your story and your evolution, and not just it being personal, but being able to translate it to other young kids and, relay a message, even if you're not, a part of the exact Gen Z generation. I think your message is generational, honestly. And
Mhm.
I just want to thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I hope I didn't sound fussy. I probably sound old school. You know, I'm new school and old school. I can get down with Little Baby and the Baby and all them, Boozy and all of them. But I also, I got the Sam Cooke, I've got the, Billie Holiday, like all of that. So I thank you all so much. I mean, these questions that you asked are amazing. They really made me stop and think. I didn't mean to be preachy. It's just me being me and saying what's really on my heart and mind. So thank you all for the opportunity, and congratulations. And I'm excited to hear the other interviews.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much,
much.
Yasmine.
Absolutely.
Love you tons.
What you say?
I said, I love you tons. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
I love you so much. I love you. I love you all so much. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name's Anaya, and I was the one that told my story about homelessness. And now that you know, if you would also like to share your story on our podcast, you can check us out on Instagram, or you can go to our website. We're really active there, and you too can be a part of the bigger mission at hand. We also have resources on our Instagram and on our website. So if you're going through anything traumatic, homelessness, or if you have an incarcerated parent or anything of that nature, there's things to help you individually as a person, and there's also peer support groups. It is virtual, but a community is always going to be a community no matter where we meet. If you would also like a mentor, again, you can check us out on our Instagram or on our website. If you are a teacher, a professor, any educator at all, there's also resources for you. You're also a really big part of this mission at hand, and in that power dynamic, there's always space to improve. And overall, just keep in contact with us, our website, our Instagram, Twitter. We never know where you could find us, but we're always there.